For more than 60 years, Schoeller Alibert has been in plastic returnable transport packaging for multiple markets. As world population is growing and with the survival of our planet at stake, there's an urgent demand for sufficient yet sustainable supply chain logistics. Today I talk to Jan de Witte, Chief Commercial Officer at Schoeller Alibert, about how reusable transport packaging can play a significant role in the transition to a circular and low-carbon economy. Welcome, Jan, on the set. Schoeller Alibert is into plastic returnable transport packaging. Just very briefly explain what's the difference between primary, secondary, and there's also a tertiary packaging, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
That's correct. Well, the difference between primary, secondary and tertiary packaging is actually significant. But to answer the question very shortly, it would be that it depends on the circumstances and the product. The primary packaging, the way it is used as a terminology in the industry, is actually when the packaging that is most close to the product. The secondary packaging is the packaging which is actually making the handling and the promotion on the shelf possible. And tertiary packaging is the packaging which is actually protecting the product and also making sure that we can ship the product. Now, primary and secondary packaging, the terminology is overlapping in many circumstances. It is more the tertiary packaging which is much more consistent. But if I may, I would more make it important to lay out that the biggest difference looking at packaging is to make a distinction between single-use, one-way packaging, and reusable, multi-way packaging.
Can you give us an example of that circular packaging model already in use, so to say?
Yeah, of course. Well, I have multiple examples across the 10 different market segments where we are active in. But to name a few, I must say we make a big distinction on one hand on the smaller product portfolio being the handheld portfolio, where you could say in 1959, actually the founding father of Schoeller Alibert developed the first plastic beverage crate.
For beers, right?
For beers, but also soft drinks. And these beverage crates up to today, the ones we produce, can all be 100% be recycled. Now, another example is, for example, the fact that we are producing millions of trays as a new way of delivering fresh food. And these trays, they go to the farmers, they bring fresh fruit or vegetables to the retailers, and when they are empty, they come back for inspection, they are washed, and they go back in the circuit. If needed, they are repaired. If not, or broken, they are actually reused, regrinded, we make new trays out of them, and they go back to the farmer. So it's a circular example. If you look at the bigger products, we call them the bulk products. We have combo liquid containers, we call them, IBCs, and they, for example, transport tomato paste from farming until actually the operational production area where they are filled to consumer products. When they are emptied, they are washed, cleaned, visual inspection, potentially washed, bringing back to the operations and to the farmer to actually fill them again for the next crop.
Okay, so you already talk about the logistics and supply chains that will be even more in demand in the future, because in the next 30 years the world's population is supposed to grow up to 30%. That would mean 10 billion people to feed, to clothe, to house. So that's a huge demand. Is the future thinkable without plastic? What would you say?
Well, of course, we claim that reusable packaging, transport packaging, is the way to go forward, is absolutely the future. Of course, there is also other potential packaging which has its place in modern industry and in modern economy.
What about cardboard, for example? Could that be an alternative?
Absolutely. I believe that cardboard has definitely its place in modern industry, but to compare it to what I'm standing for, the plastic returnable packaging, cardboard is a single-use one-way packaging. That means actually, like all single-use one-way packagings, they are at end of life recyclable. But that means at every turn or at every use, they need to be recycled, which means that in reality it is often not happening and they end up in waste. Where we are then standing for compared to cardboard, the cardboard, when it is actually recycled or reused, it is possible to do that 5 up to 7 times until you see that the fibers of the cardboard are going to actually lose the strength and are downgraded. That compared to returnable plastic transit packaging, we can actually reuse it also after end of life of the product. We grind it and we simply actually make a new plastic packaging out of it. So it is endless.
So I understand that plastic has a long lifespan, yet it is a fossil fuel product. How does Schoeller Alibert relate to sustainability then?
Well, I can say it are very challenging and very demanding times, but also exciting. It creates opportunities. We see that the business landscape is actually evolving fast, and the supply chain logistics is actually developing into a next step. It is most remarkable to see that returnable transit packaging is asking constantly for new innovations. Those innovations need to be smart, circular, and very innovative. And we believe that by actually innovating in a circular economy, we are actually supporting the preservation of natural resources and reducing waste. Now, if you compare returnable transport packaging, for example, with single-use packaging, then you can say that you have 88% less emissions of using plastic returnable packaging over cardboard boxes. 5% less emissions versus single-use wooden crates, and approximately 64% less emissions if you would go for a mixed material single-use crate. So in essence, we can say that returnable transport packaging becomes actually outperforming the single-use packaging as of the 6th time you reuse it.
So Schoeller Alibert has been in the business for over 60 years now. What was the biggest transformation or the most profound transformation you have undergone?
Yeah. Well, the latest, biggest transformation we have definitely experienced was the one that started approximately 24 months ago, where we decided as a business to move actually into a new commercial offering for our customers. The demand was there. And creating actually an entry point for our customers, not necessarily to come with a down payment to acquire returnable transit plastic packaging, but to make it possible to actually rent it and to get it serviced. So not only acquiring the asset, but also completely service it with washing and repairing, which we are offering. And that is actually very attractive for our customers, bigger customers, but also startup companies, because they don't need necessarily require the OPEX, but they can immediately step into the direction for a lower carbon economy, which is circular. In addition, we have developed our SmartLink technology, which actually creates the possibility to connect the asset, the container, with the internet. It gives the possibility for our customers to see real-time, live assets throughout their supply chain, making it possible to know where they are located, if they are stored, non-active, or if they are currently in use. We are also developing constantly new technologies in collaboration and connection with the SmartLink technology, making it sure that customers can also see that the container is actually still full or is being emptied, and getting notifications for that.
So speaking about change, where do we need to apply more pressure? In the packaging sector or in the legislation around it?
Well, as I stated earlier, we can say that in the returnable packaging industry itself, there is enough demand also for actually constant smart innovations. That is driving it itself. Nevertheless, I encourage legislation, especially also after the announcement on the Green Deal in Europe, which is very positive. Nevertheless, I would like legislation to be imposed and actually in a manner where it is actually applied across the globe in a uniform and standardized way. What we currently encounter is that we need that time to adapt certain legislation, especially because legislation differs from one country to another.
So tell me a little bit more about your products so that I get a picture of it. What's the USP, for example?
Our combo liquid bin called the Excelsior is a very strong product. It's very hygienic and ergonomical. It is 100% repairable during the product life cycle, and at the end of life it is 100% recyclable. It has a very high folding ratio, which makes it very attractive, definitely on return transportation. It also has the Releasy connection, which makes it very easy actually to connect and disconnect new liners. Of course, available for rental. It is also equipped with our new SmartLink technology, which makes it possible to actively track it over the internet. You can see when the product is completely filled, when it is emptied, so it has a fill leveling sensor embedded in it. And more importantly, you can also see when it is in use, so when it is erected or when it is completely closed and ready for pickup or to be used.
All right, so Jan has a positive outlook on the next years. Let's hope it will come true, so to say. Thank you so much for that conversation.